Hey, you're listening to Tech Talks with Lou, and I'm Lou Tenlet. I hope you're having a good day, and I'm really thankful for you listening. So, this is Tech Talks with Lou, the show in which I discuss the top tech secrets for success from the best in today's digital world. Last time, I spoke with Rob Russell Howarth Dunn, better known as the Derma Guru, whose mission is to educate and support as many people as possible on skincare. We spoke about technology in advanced skincare sector, as well as following an interest and passion to grow his successful business today. If you haven't already listened, head back after this episode and let me know what you think. My guest today is part of the solution to fighting climate change. They are actively campaigning to educate and inspire individuals and families around the world to reduce food waste and landfill. With over 1/3 of all food being produced globally never being eaten, and the value of this wasted food being worth over $1 trillion, 1.3 billion tons of waste. I'd like to welcome Saasha Celestial One, co-founder of Olio, to my podcast. Hi, Saasha. How are you?
Hi, Lou. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I absolutely love your mission to reduce waste to landfill. It's certainly one of my passions. When I spent a number of years working for Honda and kind of putting together a kind of extracurricular business team to look at supporting the business mission to reduce landfill by a certain year. But that actually meant understanding what waste was being disposed of from the office. There was a beautiful restaurant and deli. We were going down and buying the team drinks and coffees. And you can imagine just how many cups and plastic lids were being used in the office. And every individual in that office, 800 of us, had an individual bin. Right. And part of that was really understanding how many hundreds of thousands of cups were being thrown away a year. So part of the project I was kind of heading up was to reduce the consumption and the waste going to landfill, kind of putting in a recycling scheme. And within 6 months, we'd reduced the amount of landfill going from the office space by 60%. And that was just in 6 months of one intervention of removing those bins and actually empowering everybody to have a culture change and take their waste and kind of segregate it from that perspective. But I want to kind of understand the basis for the Olio app and how you started.
First of all, that's awesome what you managed to achieve at the Honda office. And I wish more offices would do that. Coffee cups are they're everywhere you look. Once you see them on bus benches, just they're litter really, and something that needs to be solved. So Olio was an idea that came about nearly 8 years ago. One of my best friends, Tessa, and I, we sort of had reached that point in our professional careers where we were new moms and we knew that we wanted to do something much more impactful with the sort of skills and experience that we possessed. And we teamed up and started looking for an environmental challenge that we could tackle, because that's what we've always been passionate about, what's united us in terms of a common interest. And we did a 3-month study actively looking for some problem that we could bring sort of modern technology to make it more efficient and ultimately, create a solution for which there would be a market. And we came up empty-handed. And right at the end of that search exercise, we were quite gutted, if I'm honest. Tessa told me about an experience she'd just had moving house. And on moving day, she had some food she wasn't going to be able to eat in time. And she thought because it was non-perishable, she would be able to pack it. But the removal men said absolutely not, no food in the boxes. And she was horrified because they said throw it away, which she wasn't going to do. And cut a long story short, she tried to give it away to someone on the streets, and she wasn't able to. And she ended up smuggling the food in her packing boxes anyway. And that was really the light bulb moment for Olio, because obviously there was someone, within meters of her in her apartment complex on her street who would have been more than happy to take that food and not let it go to waste, but she had no way to reach them.
Yes.
And we sort of thought to ourselves, like, who's going to, surely there's not that much food going to waste, because we don't waste food. And we were really horrified when we did a quick Google search and realized just the scale and monstrosity of food waste, which is one of the biggest problems facing humanity today.
Yes, I completely resonate. We all have food, and maybe it's kind of thrown away or given to friends, but there's so much that we may want to consume, but our kind of spending habits, or our the way we operate our households, means that we end up throwing things away. And I've been using your Olio app since the beginning of lockdown, so kind of March, April 2020, and it's been absolutely invaluable to share additional food and resources. So not just food,
It's not
kind
food,
of
no.
recently sharing all sorts the things, dare I say it, unwanted Christmas presents. No, I don't have any of those, but
it is the day after Christmas is our busiest day of the year.
Really, that's amazing. So if you if you have kind of food or things that you don't want in your household, Olio is the app to be using.
We're really trying to help people as well see the value in, one might sort of think of as the invisible clutter in your house. And that's sort of, a half a tin of paint for a piece of furniture that you no longer own, but it's still in your cupboard, right? And that might help transform, I don't know, some little boy or girl's desk into something magnificent, but it's completely useless sitting there for years and years in your cupboard. And I share that example specifically because it's not the kind of thing you can take to a charity shop. It's not the kind of thing, that you should really be putting in the bin because it's a toxic material. But it is certainly the kind of thing that has value and would be a net benefit to your entire community if we can, at scale, just really get into the mindset of looking for those items that have value, that are going underutilized, and rehome them.
Yes. So if anyone's, well, obviously you are listening, have a look around your home and see what sort of items that might be not of value to you right now, but of value to somebody else.
Yeah.
Saasha, I kind of want to come back to, your kind of co-founding of this business with a friend and the female entrepreneurship side of your tech business. Because being a mum myself, I kind of understand the challenges, but you've done all of this with a friend, and you've grown your business to great success. I'd love to hear more about the story around you being a mum and working with friend.
Yeah, Tessa and I sort of often can be heard saying that our co-founder relationship and friendship is really probably our biggest superpower. And we, from the very beginning, we knew that we needed to tread carefully and make sure we didn't do anything, respect each other and challenge each other and hold each other accountable, but ultimately make sure we didn't cause long-term damage to our friendship. So one of the first things we did is we sort of went away together for the weekend. We took the book, The Founder's Dilemma, which is an excellent tool for anyone who's an early stage founder, and sort of tees up some really key decisions that you need to make at the beginning of the entrepreneurial journey, and also discusses how co-founder conflict can be really a source of incredible stress and be very distracting to a business. So if you can get alignment on these key sort of components, or variables, I guess, of the entrepreneurial journey, so that you both have said up front, like, do you value equity more, or do you value control? Do you value growth? How do you want to go about having some sort of tricky and sensitive conversations and get them out of the way? And that was really helpful. And every now and then we refer back to that founding document or contract that we made together. As a female founded team, on the one side, I think it has its benefits in terms of attracting talent, especially women who really want to work for a strong female-founded team. It has its benefits in getting cut through in the press. Like, we've been called sort of two moms on a mission, more times than count. And every International Women's Day, we get touted out and about by all of sort of the big, Apple and Google and everyone else who wants to showcase that we're part of their tech universe. But the facts with regard to fundraising really speak for themselves. Female-founded teams get less than 1% of available venture capital investment every year in the UK.
Yeah.
It's not much better if you're a female and you have a male co-founder. I think it's about 11%. The rest goes to male-only founded teams. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that biased or, intentional or not, I'm sure mostly it's unintentional. Those individuals with check writing capabilities at VCs and other places, family offices, et cetera, currently tend to be stacked with men who tend to more or less relate to, especially when it comes to consumer solutions like Olio, relate to problems that are solved that are more relevant for their gender.
Yeah.
And Olio itself is actually very much skewed towards women. So 3/4 of our users are women, and the vast majority of people, as one may or may not, sort of expect, who are thinking about the household food and clothing and toy and book and stuff budget, and inventory, tend to be women. These still, so it's been I think a mixed ride. We have been incredibly fortunate to be one of those female-founded teams who has been successful and secured multiple rounds of fundraising. So I can't really complain, but it hasn't been easy.
No, I can imagine, being a kind of female mum, entrepreneur, kind of working on my own. I'm more and more having conversations with individual entrepreneurs and kind of sharing the struggles and going, how much easier would it be if we were not necessarily working with a co-founder, but having a kind of support network that, supports individuals. But, certainly the evidence that you're suggesting, 1% of investment going to female founded companies, that's just horrific. In the structure of today's society, when we've got so much to offer, we do offer so much.
I mean, I think one of the things that made it all possible was we set up Olio from the beginning to fit around the fact that we wanted to have it all. We wanted to be full-time entrepreneurs and not necessarily full-time moms, but we wanted to do pickup and drop off and be there for those sort of milestone moments, but also the day-to-day, packed lunches and, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So Olio has been remote from day one back in 2015 when we set up, long before it was a necessity due to the pandemic. And that has really helped us to attract team members who also, for whatever reason, whether they're parents or they just have a dog they love to walk at lunch, or they're whatever, they live in the country, want to have that flexibility to work from wherever, but not in an office. And that's really given us, I think that just, if I had to show up in an office every day, especially when my son was young, and sort of start a company, I think that might have just been, does not compute territory. Yeah. So I'm really glad that we sort of set things up on our own terms. And in the beginning, we had investors asking us all the time, well, where's your office? Where's your office? And we were like, good news is we didn't waste your money on an office we never go to. Yes. They still sort of look at us a bit like, this isn't normal. Are you sure you don't want an office? How are you going to get anything done?
That's incredible. I mean, I'm incredibly grateful for the time that we all had, during lockdown and the pandemic, to work from home and change the understanding that, individuals, whether they're parents or not, can work from home even more efficiently and effectively. As mums, we know that we're working more hours than office hours because our minds are always on it, always thinking about what's next. And I think, we have that wonderful capability. Today, you've got over 6 million users worldwide on your app, which is just incredible, all from a basis of an organization that doesn't have an office. I think is outstanding. I'm certainly looking at your business model and taking notes. I love using the Olio app, and this is not an advert for the Olio app, but I also want to talk about gamification. And just to kind of explain a bit around that, because we've all been through different scenarios, whether it's being rewarded with gold stars at school, or having that half a stone weight loss and getting a sparkly sticker and a certificate at Slimming World, or whatever else, that actually it kind of it empowers and makes us feel great from the inside. Now I know, Olio, I've just achieved my violet status with my karma points on Olio, but talk to us a bit more about the gamification that you've used within the Olio app.
Yeah, gamification is interesting because it absolutely does work for about 2/3 of the people. And then, and for those 2/3, it's very motivating. And I'm one of those people. So I'm on rainbow status, which is the elite top status. But
I aspire to be there.
I am fully employed by the company, so it's only fair. And so we have we have badges, which are sort of discrete actions that you can either you get through just behaving, like your weekend badge is the first time you share, let's say on a Saturday, or there's 30 or 40 or 50 different badges that you can claim. Actually, what we end up doing with badges in the long run is a bit TBC because they are a bit controversial. I love them, but some people feel that they're a bit childish. But what has worked for almost everyone is the idea of levels, which will be familiar to anyone who's spent time in a digital mobile environment, where you can take certain behaviors and you get a certain number of points. And once you accumulate a certain number of points, you get promoted to the next level. And of course, we can try and nudge you when you're close to the next level. And maybe you've, not come back to the app in a while, to come back and don't lose, make sure that you take that action soon. And then streaks are another gamification mechanism that are very powerful for a lot of people. If anyone out of your listeners does their Wordle, I'm quite sort of protective of my Wordle streak. And when I miss a day and it resets, that's back to the drawing board. So they're really just best practice, I think, in terms of engaging users who might have otherwise lapsed or had their attention diverted to another app, because we all are facing, notifications, interventions, gamification from dozens and dozens of sources. So the trick is to try and do it in a way where it's not irritating, results in the desired behavior. If you can figure that out, and it's definitely an art, not a science, it is highly effective and essentially cost-free way, because you're just sending someone a message to get them to continue to use your service. Our number one most sort of the most highly opened email that we do is called the impact email, which we send each month to people. It has a really high open rate, and it basically summarizes what the activity that they did last month, but it turns it into the environmental and social equivalents. So how much water did you save? How many meals did you feed people, etc.? And people really respond to that, and that's because they're really proud of the actions they took, and then seeing how it has discreetly benefited other people or the environment. So I think thinking about behavior change just a bit more broadly beyond gamification, the more you can reward people and thank them for what they've already done, but then remind them that beyond the personal motivation of doing something, the impact it's having on others, people also respond to that as well.
You're listening to Tech Talks with Lou, and I'm Lou Temlett. And today I'm talking with Saasha Celestial One, co-founder of Olio, the #1 free sharing app. So I kind of want to follow on with the behavior change, because that's ultimately, what we're all striving for in business or in life, to actually educate and inform and kind of build some excitement around making a change for the positive. We kind of talked about the gamification, but the behavior change of society in general. You spoke about the amount of water being saved. To date, you've had nearly 58 million portions of food have been shared worldwide. 6 million users and 8.6 billion litres of water have been saved since your app has been running. There's still such an amount of work to do. Absolutely. In terms of behaviour change. So I kind of want to, focus on that a bit and ask you, what's next? What more can we be doing? Because often these behaviour changes are so small that have, a kind of big impact.
Yeah, it's the thing that keeps me up at night and has done for many years, because fortunately it's really one of the most difficult things you can do to get sort of wide scale mainstream consumer behavior change and adaptation of a new behavior. And there's the whole sort of model of crossing the chasm and how you sort of move along that. And we're sort of at that point now where we've got lots of early adopters, of which you're one, who love us and evangelize about us. But in order to cross over into the real early mainstream, what we need to do is sort of, it's a lot of people, and we need to divvy it up into segments, and we need to find the segment that we're going to work at. Because if we just try and talk to everyone with the exact same message, whether you're a student, you're a parent, you're retired, we're not going to get cut through. So we have done a lot of research. We've identified the segment that we're going into that is a small enough but sizable enough segment that we think is receptive to our message. These are our target adders. These are people who we believe will give things away. And we need people to give things away because we're a supply constrained marketplace. Everything on Olio that's listed more or less goes 82, 85%. Half of all food is requested in under 20 minutes. It's a pretty miraculous, very liquid marketplace. And ironically, the challenge is getting people to give stuff away that they don't want. And so that target adder is really, we're talking about moms with moms. I was saying moms with kids by definition, sort of moms. And we need to find the advocates within that segment who will then start to tell all of their friends, because really what we need to do is for everyone within this segment to be sharing on their class WhatsApp groups and their local Facebook mums pages, and all of the other places at the school gates where they're talking to other mums. And in that way, that's how you get to a tipping point where enough people are seeing enough other people that they see on a regular basis doing a particular behavior, that it then flips from like, oh, that's weird, to like, oh, wait, everyone I know is using Olio to get rid of last year's school uniform. And it's just about getting to that sort of penetration and scale within a segment. We're a long ways away from that, but that's our plan this year. Obviously, we have to do that in a budget-constrained environment, but it isn't about telling people how many liters of water they're going to save, and it's about making it seem normal.
You're right. The behavior change has to become a normalized form in terms of making things more positive, and it's a kind of selling it in rather than going, you have to do this. But it when you give things away, this, I mean, you of course know this, when you give things away, people are so grateful. I had 3 people come to my door for things I'd posted and listed on the app yesterday, but they were so grateful to receive. And I think that's one of the intrinsic things, that behavior change is not about stuff or things, it's about that feeling. And just it's that essence of, actually, I'm doing something good, but I can see that person in my community feeling grateful. It's that half bottle of hand cream that I liked but never used.
We're very hardwired as humans to get that hit, that feel good hit, when we give something of value to another human. It's one of the reasons our species has survived. And conversely, we feel physical pain when we throw something of value away. No one likes to just throw away perfectly good food. It goes against all of our evolutionary instincts. I think we've become quite numb to it, but it's not pleasant. So we just need to be more pleasant than the bin, right? Which is not hard, but it's actually quite hard to beat the convenience of just throwing something away. And no one's watching you. So once people try Olio for the first time, that feel good sharing factor is quite pronounced, and our retention in terms of people coming back is very solid. And that's our biggest challenge, is getting people to try it for the first time. And I think a lot of people feel nervous about potentially having an awkward social exchange. Or maybe the person being like, "Oh God, you gave me half a bottle of hand lotion. What's wrong with you?" And it's not until you experience it, the gratitude from someone who, for them, that might be a very luxurious treat, not necessarily because they're, really living sort of an impoverished. They're in poverty. They might just be on a budget or saving up for something, or be a student, or there's a million different reasons why someone might want to rescue a bit of someone's spare and keep it for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I was astounded to read, the average family throwing away, whilst it doesn't seem a lot, £730 of food waste each year. That's £15 billion worth of food going to landfill. That's just ridiculous. I mean, these are kind of telephone number figures, too big to even comprehend. But in your kind of family unit, how many weekly shops? I mean, maybe it might, at least a monthly shop. You could easily spend that kind of budget. But
for the average household, it's 1/4 of their weekly shop. Is 25%, which is the same as going to the grocery store and sort of getting 4 carrier bags and just leaving one in the parking lot, right? Wow. And it doesn't seem like a lot sometimes when you say £730, but for many families, that's a holiday.
Yes, I kind of want to bring it back to community, because one of the benefits of the Olio app is that you maybe or maybe not get to know your neighbours and community. But I grew up in a city, and we knew, our family knew lots of other families in the area, and it was very much a community focus. Now, as the years have kind of gone on and the generations, we've become even more detached from other individuals. And I'm really heartened to kind of see that the Olio app, is using technology to bring communities back together. How important is the community aspect for your business?
It's incredibly important, and much more important than we ever anticipated. It was sort of a happy accident or happy side effect. We survey our users regularly. We've learned that I think 40%, when we did it quite recently, said they'd actually made someone they would call a friend. They met through Olio. We've had a few marriages and kids as well over the years. And we know that 2 out of 3 people say Olio's helped them with their mental health, and people who might be suffering from social isolation and loneliness. I think 1 in 5 people in the UK say that they are always or almost always chronically lonely. So we aren't just facing a climate crisis. We are facing a loneliness crisis, as well, as people have become much more disconnected from each other and spend a lot more time in their digital lives as opposed to their physical lives. So it's just the basic premise of having a conversation, and a quick conversation, arranging pickup, and then saying hello and thank you to another human is incredibly satisfying. It makes you feel more connected and rooted. That said, I'd like to reassure anyone out there who might be feeling sort of a bit apprehensive about that level of social contact, that I personally often, just because I'm busy, I have a safe space outside, and I tend to message and love the pleases and thank yous, but I don't always have time for the doorstep handover, and so I'll hide things outside. But even just that messaging with someone who says to me, "Oh my goodness, thanks for the rubber balls. My dog is going to love them," and just knowing where the things are going and having that little story, it does make you feel more connected. Which I think there's not that many apps that bring you together sort of in real life, beyond dating apps, which do quite a lot of that, I've heard.
Sorry, personal experience. Yes, let's not talk about dating apps. I mean,
that my partner of over 5 years was my first and only right swipe on Tinder.
Wow.
Now he was on Tinder for 5 years.
And he met the one, so that's fantastic.
Wait a lot longer.
I mean, I love what you say about being able to, if you don't want that contact in that moment, during lockdown, you could leave things outside your front door and know that someone was coming to pick them up. So it offers all sorts of levels of interaction on your boundaries, which is really, really nice. It feels like a very much user generated, user led app. And there are rewards, digital rewards and kind of humanistic awards, which, is great. And ultimately working towards, kind of benefiting climate change and improving the impact that we're making. It's January, and you've launched your declutter campaign. So you put into a prize draw if you list 5 different items on the Olio app. I achieved that this morning, which I'm very proud. I think there's kind of, bigger prize draw for 30. So I'll be scouring the children's bedrooms and everywhere to see what can be shared, and the cupboards, because that's always a good time. We're spring cleaning, so it's a good time to look through all those cupboards and things. But one of the other campaigns is about focusing on businesses as well, and supporting businesses to reduce food waste within their own business. And I kind of want to come to that and how you're interacting with businesses to get involved with yours.
So the vast majority of surplus food waste takes place in the home, well over 50%, up to 70% by some estimates. Most people think of supermarket waste or restaurant waste as the biggest culprit, but that's actually dwarfed in comparison to household waste. That said, the scale of waste at the retail level is monstrous. And we quickly discovered that there's an opportunity here for us to provide a solution to businesses. And that is how we've monetized. And we earn revenue from recruiting members of the community, training them training them with regard to food safety, and then matching them with a business that has unsold surplus at the end of the day. We call those volunteers food waste heroes. We have over 75,000 registered food waste heroes. And then we match them with collection opportunities. And that could be Tesco, Holloway Road, 8 p.m. Tuesday. And that volunteer claims that collection opportunity, shows up at the designated time and place, and it takes all the food that couldn't be sold, couldn't be donated to charity, and needs to be eaten before midnight, more or less. Take that straight home, and they add it on the app, and within sort of minutes, quite literally, their neighbors request what they want, they divvy it up, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 bundles. People pop around, they pick up their bundle. They say, you do have to say hello in this instance. Pick up their bundle, and then they take it home. And an average collection, at a Tesco can be anywhere from 10 to 200 items. Yes. And that's all food that would have been thrown away today because it's a use by today. It's food that needs to be eaten today. And we do about 25,000 collections a week. So this is where the millions and millions of meals are coming from. But we also work with most of the contract caterers in the UK and also in Mexico, Argentina, Ireland, lots of different markets. And those are the caterers that are servicing offices. So any one of your listeners who works in an office that has a corporate canteen or even just sort of a shop at the ground floor lobby, every single one of those will have surplus food. And I guarantee that it's not getting eaten. And if all you got to do is just say, hey, can I talk to the catering manager? Let them know about Olio, and they can get put in touch. And we can send a volunteer to make sure that food is redistributed to the local community, which is really, I think, the premise of everything we're trying to do, which is, good edible food, or frankly, anything that has value, anything that is one of the most precious resources that takes up the earth's, scarce resources. We just want to make sure that value is fully realized.
I have goosebumps when you kind of talk about, kind of climate change and saving, food that's much needed and kind of wanted. It feels like such a good cause.
It's really, really important. It's easy to dismiss food as something that's organic and not sort of net polluting to the environment. But for a whole variety of reasons that are probably too complicated to explain right here, but we got lots of information on our website. The sad truth is that food waste itself accounts for 10% of global carbon emissions. Wow. It is the number one. It has been identified by Project Drawdown, which is a coalition of 170 of the world's top climate scientists, as the number one most impactful thing we could do to mitigate the effects of the climate crisis. It's the stupidest problem, because we also have nearly 1 billion people who are hungry, and they're not
Yes.
all in the third world. There's over 10 million people living in food poverty here in the UK, and we could feed every hungry person on the planet on less than a fourth of the food we waste in the US and Europe. So this is a market inefficiency problem, and like it or not, we are all part of this problem, whether it's in our homes or in our offices, our schools, our churches, our gyms. There's just surplus for the events we attend. And once you sort of become wizened to it, you'll see it everywhere, and you'll just be thinking, oh my gosh, there's 14 croissants at the end of this breakfast meeting. They're left over. What's going to happen to them? Like Olio it. So obviously our ambition is huge, but the opportunity for impact is what keeps us going every day. And the stories from everyday people who, either are grateful to receive or to give away something, because that's the human connection that we all crave.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the fact that you've landed on such a massive opportunity. When you kind of look at the whole market, the impact, it hits every aspect, as well as your kind of ethics and, processes within your organization. Working remotely.
It's lovely to work on a problem that's so big that if we achieve it, that we'll have really changed the world for better, quote unquote. But it can be incredibly discouraging with the pace of change as well, because we know we're just so far away, from where we need to get to. But Tessa and I both like to try and remind ourselves that it took billions or trillions of thoughtless actions to sort of get ourselves into the mess. It wasn't just one paper cup, right? It wasn't just one sort of leftover dinner to put in the in the bin. It was more than we can even count. But that, by the same logic, means that it will take billions of just slightly mindful, thoughtful actions to crawl our way out of it. And it feels overwhelming, but it's the exact same logic that got us into that. So I find that quite reassuring. It's just going to be a little bit of faith that lots of small actions can lead to massive transformational change.
Absolutely. I mean, we've covered, so many aspects, and I'm, pleased we've talked about kind of climate crisis. We've talked about gamification. We've talked about remote working. We've talked about, being a mum and still wanting to work and kind of dedicate our lives, for the better of the business world, as well as, being mums.
Absolutely.
We all kind of want to have that impact and drive. There's so much. I'm feeling so much excitement for your project. And being able to focus on your segment, which is mums. Waiting outside school and in the playground, and just sharing that. Like you say, it takes one person to go, oh, okay, this is what I've done, and here's how it helped me, or how it made me feel. And then just going, it become a normalized concept. So Saasha, what's next for Olio? I know you're focusing on the segment this year, but what else is next for Olio?
Well, we continue to expand sort of what you can do in the app, and we will continue. So we have added in a section where you can borrow everyday household items. So people borrow my disco lights and my mattress, my air mattress, and all kinds of things from me, board games, etc. And we have a wanted section where you can request items. But in terms of what's next, to answer your question, is we will introduce more categories, whether it's renting or, there's all different kinds of ideas that we have to just make the app more useful for more use more often. And it's a good question. What's next? I mean, it's really just about scaling, right? So we've recently grown the team. We've sort of doubled the team in the last year, and we're at the end of a period of sort of transition and leveling up. And this year is all about taking the talent and the tools that we've acquired over the last year and just hitting the ground running to try and scale.
And for you being part of that, what's next for you as an individual?
My job now is a little bit to get out of the way. I've been so hands-on, and just been really close to every aspect of the business. And as uncomfortable as it feels, my baby is now a teenager, and they need some space. So I'm trying to figure out how to sort of revamp my role, and a lot of that means spending more time doing podcasts, speaking at events, being more externally focused, and I sort of having my head sort of above my view above the horizon, looking for the bigger picture things that might be coming next, partnerships, etc.
And how can people get hold of the app, or contact you, or contact Olio if they are obviously not you, because you're wanting to kind of take a bit of a break?
Olio, in the App Store, Google Play, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Myself, and my contact details, as well as pretty much everyone on the team. We're all very public and accessible, and happy as always to talk to early stage founders or mid stage founders. I always enjoy doing that too. So feel free to reach out, and please download the app and have a declutter.
Absolutely. Saasha, it's been absolute joy speaking with you, and a privilege to, hear the fantastic work and just your thoughts on the whole kind of, the tech world as far as your app and, growth as a female entrepreneur. So, and a mother, let's not forget that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Lou. It's been a lot of fun to talk to you.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I have recording it. I look forward to have you listening in again for the next episode. And in the meantime, I'd love you to rate, review, and download this episode. Thanks again for listening.